Hello, YouTube. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking about reciprocity.com, the sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build. The E is spelled with a 3. So in this video, I'm actually going to talk to you about pursuing a challenging problem, or how to actually pursue a challenging problem, and why you should always pursue a challenging problem. I think this is a really important lesson in life. So how do you pursue a challenging problem? So once again, I'm actually a professor of innovation and strategy at a large institution in Florida, and we talk about this all the time. In fact, this is what an organization, a company, actually does. This is their main role, is to pursue challenging problems that individuals can't do on their own. They're pursuing something that's much, much more bigger than what any individual can do. If you think about Walmart, for example, they have thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of employees pursuing this large goal, whatever it is, that we as one individual cannot possibly do. So this is a really central part of organizations and how they function. And we've been studying this for a long, long time, probably for the last 50 years, since the 1960s when we started talking about how to do this. Even beyond that, we are talking about this going way, way back, hundreds of years ago, to Adam Smith, for example. And there's two ways that people pursue challenging problems. The first way they pursue a challenging problem is that they go through and they specialize as much as possible. They divide up what's called a division of labor. So they have one particular task, this giant problem that's so hard to pursue, and it's very challenging, and they look at this and they're like, I just can't do this. So what they do is they break it down into different components. The first thing that you might want to do is break it down into maybe components of 3 different things. Whatever those 3 different things are, you break it down, and then you take the one of those 3 things, and then you break it down further, and you break it down, and you keep going, and you keep breaking it down until eventually you have a little tiny task that you're pursuing. So for example, if you're pursuing starting a new business, that is a very challenging problem. You're trying to get some sort of income from that. That is difficult, and most people are going to find that challenging. They're going to say, well, I can't do that. It's so long before I'm actually going to get any sort of revenue from something. But what you do is you break it down into little tiny tasks. So for example, with reciprocity, with me trying to build this platform out and make it so that somebody else is going to pursue this someday, and maybe I'll get a manager or something of this project, I have to do all these little tiny steps. First of all, I created the platform. I got contract manufacturers to create it. I saved up for it. It was really important. We saved and saved and saved. And then we got contract manufacturers, and we have something that's very sort of rustic. It's called a minimal viable product, something that functions. And then after that, I'm doing these YouTube videos to gain traffic. I started out with, and sometimes it doesn't work, right? Whatever you're pursuing. So I started out with doing just straight Google AdWords, and it was really expensive, and it wasn't going to be sustainable, and it wasn't also building trust. That's one thing that's important, is to build trust. So I decided to do these YouTube videos, having a lot of fun with it because I can share all of my ideas with you. And so I'm breaking down all these components, and it's not just, I'm doing YouTube videos. Then I got to break it down into what are the individual videos I'm going to do. This is called the division of labors, breaking it down. In fact, Adam Smith said that this was one of the most wonderful things, that this is what sort of creates the economy going. And Adam Smith was one of the founders of economics, for example. He started economics, and he started thinking about how the economy works. And one of the things was just thinking about how we break down different tasks or these really challenging problems into different little tiny tasks. And we do that. We do that in organizations. That's all they do. Walmart has, they have a very large organization. Each individual person has their own task. There's the cashier person. There is the person that stocks the shelves. There's all these different components that you do at Walmart. right? The other thing that you should do, so the second thing that you should do beyond what's called differentiation of each individual task or of the task, the second thing that you should do is go through and integrate these different tasks as much as possible. You have this challenging problem, you break it down into the division of labor, and then you try to integrate the different tasks as much as possible. So this is the role of managers, for example, that they will go and they will think about how we can do things better together as a whole. Or this is the role of information services, for example, or IT, where they integrate different things together as much as possible so that they fit together and we're walking step by step together in the same direction. Because if everybody's doing their own little different tasks, we're not pursuing a common goal. So we have to figure out a way to integrate those different tasks as much as possible. And so it makes sense, right? So, for example, with the YouTube videos that I'm putting out, I'm trying to integrate them and make sure that they kind of make sense and they fit together with a couple of different audiences. For example, I'm putting out for graduate students and senior undergraduate students that are interested in doing a thesis. I'm targeting small businesses, for example, that are interested in how to grow their company and maybe could use services that as what Reciprocity is putting out. I'm also targeting writers because that's really important. So there's different components, these different, I'm not just kind of doing YouTube videos about any abstract thing that doesn't quite make any sense, right? So those are the two things that are very important. It's been around since the 1960s. Put the citation in the show notes if you're interested. So we've been talking about the differentiation, breaking up into division of labor, and then integrating the different tasks as much as possible so that we move together in a step-by-step fashion. Now, it's really important to know that this in itself, by pursuing challenging tasks, these difficult, really problems, these challenging problems that nobody else is willing to do, that in itself is a competitive advantage because nobody else is pursuing it. There's a reason why nobody else is pursuing it. So you have to figure out a way, if you're going to pursue a competitive advantage, or you're going to create this as a competitive advantage, these difficult problems, is that you figure out a way so that it's sustainable. Whether it is you have some sort of Slack resources, you maybe do something on the side, like I'm trying to do with this, so I can actually start to hire somebody eventually and they can run all of this kind of stuff. Maybe I'll continue on the YouTube videos. I love doing them. They're kind of fun. But to run all of the technical aspects so I can actually get back to becoming a professor, which is my role in this kind of, that's where I see myself. I want to get back into doing that a little bit more. But in order to get there, I have to build this out. Right. So, but that is your competitive advantage, is doing these things that nobody else is willing to do. And that makes it a really rare thing that nobody else is pursuing. So, for example, and it might seem that, well, somebody could come in, a large company could come in and do the exact same thing that you're doing. Yes, they can, but there's a reason why they don't. It's because it's probably too small of a market that you might be pursuing. It's too small, it doesn't make sense, and you're pursuing these little tiny tasks, or it's just something that they never thought about. They don't have the technical skills to integrate that all together. Don't underestimate that. It's really difficult to acquire the different technical skills and this sort of vision and integrate those all together and to keep pursuing at something. That's actually a really challenging thing to do. What large companies can do is they will hire or acquire another company that is doing that, and that is very, very common, so that they can acquire something that is interesting. So with that, the other thing that I want to be clear about, and I see this problem all the time, particularly with people that are probably starting out with some sort of startup or a very difficult, challenging task like doing a PhD, is what you do see is people sort of breaking it down and writing it out and sort of rationally planning these are the different steps and stuff like that. That's not the way it happens. What you should be thinking about is breaking down these steps as you go and thinking about what is the next thing to do? What is the next thing to do? Because there's this thing called, actually it's called the planning fallacy in behavioral economics, or where we know people actually make a really poor judgments of how long things are going to take. We think that they're going to take X number of months. It's probably going to take 3 times as long, right? So if it thinks it's going to take a year, it's going to take 3 years to do. So it's really difficult to plan out these different things, because there's always little things that come up along the way that you couldn't estimate. And it's better just to kind of go through and let it evolve over time, thinking about how I could break up these tasks when it gets overwhelming. Just then you can start integrating them together, maybe finding some sort of manager to run that particular thing, but not until you're actually generating enough revenue that you need a manager. You can pay for a manager to do that particular thing. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. If you like these videos, you can do the old thumbs up, and you can also do, that's fine too. I don't really mind. But if you want to learn more about this kind of stuff, I do different videos on challenging problems for those who are doing a PhD, for example, as well as things about innovation, strategy, entrepreneurship, and about writing as well. So I have a lot of different things that I'm putting out at this current moment. I'm trying to do a video every single day for the next little while. If you want to help out with the Reciprocity Project, you can check that out as well. It's a sharing economy proofreading platform. Hopefully it's going to help science at the same time, so you can check that out. Go onto the website. The E is spelled with a 3. That's all I have to say today. And thank you so much, and I'm going to see you on the next video. Bye.